Membership
Yeah,
site included.
hey, everybody. It says we are live. I love the big reveal too. You know what I mean?
Well, too bad. It's like probably disappointing. Oh, that's it. Just keep
Huh?
on
Oh
Sigmund.
God, I'm drinking coffee. Hello, we're here.
Cover up.
Okay, I will clear my bleary eyes, and we will go on in three, two, and one. Colts in Jacksonville, and boy, this thing's pretty interesting on multiple levels. It is the Audible. It's Week 1 preview part 2. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. And Bloom, my God, I hope you checked your levels because we forgot to check this morning. But we'll get back to it, and
Yeah.
you can give me a nod, heads up.
Secret code.
Yeah, secret code. Wink.
Wink once.
We got it. But we got to talk about the Colts side of things because it's the debut of Phillip Rivers. I got a lot of questions last night about Jonathan Taylor. A lot of people, a lot of fantasy GMs excited about the rookie. Still have Marlon Mack, still have Nyheim Hines. This is against Jacksonville. They should be able to have their way. So thoughts and expectations for the debut of the Phillip Rivers Colts team. Pretty easy layup. I know Colts defense. If they didn't get picked up in your league, I know a lot of people are, who's Jacksonville playing this week? Oh, the Colts. I'm going to pick up that defense. So it could be a robust day for the Colts, but who and why?
Yeah, this is a game for the Colts, kind of like we talked about the Bills, who are the Jets playing? There's a defense to pick up too.
Right.
The point is the Colts should look like a Super Bowl contender here. The Ravens, the Chiefs, obviously are going to set the bar high. But what we're seeing this year, and it's fun, is Chris Ballard in end game mode. Go get DeForest Buckner. You pick up Phillip Rivers. And this should be just a tune-up for this team. We're going to see what this Colts offense looks like. We know that Jacoby Brissett was holding it back last year. Just how much? So we'll have the biggest story, I suppose, is Jonathan Taylor. And you took Taylor in the third or fourth round. If Marlon Mack gets 20 carries and Taylor only gets 12, no panic here. It's really how Taylor looks on those 12. You didn't necessarily draft Jonathan Taylor for what he was going to do the first few weeks. You drafted Jonathan Taylor for what he's going to do in the second half of the year. And let's see how he looks to see how quickly that can happen. That being said, Taylor's still a flex play here, or maybe even a running back too. Maybe they're both good plays here. And then, of course, Nyheim Hines. And again, you drafted Nyheim Hines thinking, here's your new Austin Eckler. Well, this is a game that the Colts should cruise, so maybe we're not going to see Hines fully used. He might be more of a game script dependent player. You're still going to play T.Y. Hilton, although again, you want T.Y. Hilton to do some damage before this one gets out of hand. And it's no disrespect to the Jags, but this is a defense. Remember, they don't have Calais Campbell, they don't have A.J. Boyd, they don't have Jalen Ramsey. This is going to be a pretty easy defense. Welcome to the NFL, by the way, C.J. Henderson. Kayvon Chason, he's going to be in there now with Ngakoue traded. Also, maybe the most boring answer is the best answer in this offense, Jack Doyle. We know that Phillip Rivers loves to throw to the tight end if they're going to be down in the red zone a lot. Doyle is healthy. We're going to get to see some Michael Pittman. We're going to get to see some Paris Campbell. So they don't even need, this is one of those tie one arm behind your back. We'll just play with half of our skill players. They should be able to hold serve in this one pretty easily. And then we'll see what kind of spunky performance we get from the Gardner Minshews.
Well, before we jump to Gardner Minshew and that running back situation, which became even more interesting today, that's a spoiler. Will Frank Reich have a killer instinct? Because the problem, all of us get excited. They're playing Jacksonville. They're going to score 1 million points. Or does Frank Reich get up by 21 in the first half and then call the dogs off? So, how we're excited. It's a nice warm-up game. But does Reich have it within him to be like, you know what, we're going to punk you?
Right. Bill Belichick, basically saying if we're up by 28, that's still not enough. They certainly have the firepower to do that. But then again, it is week 1. And I suppose this week maybe isn't the best week to get an indicator of whether a coach is willing to go for the jugular, simply because this is one where once the game's in hand, you want to get your starters off the field. Everybody reconditioning. I do think you're going to see coaches being overly cautious. But you're right. Just in general, the Colts are going to need to show some sort of sharp edge if you want to get past the Ravens and the Chiefs in your bracket, and not to mention teams like the Steelers, the Bills, and so on. You're going to have an edge. So I'll be watching to see.
Okay, where does Jacksonville have an edge? Divine Ozigbo going on IR this morning. That's the hamstring injury that's led to James Robinson being the lead back. I know a lot of people are scrambling. The Jacksonville running back situation is interesting, Bloom. I'm not scrambling myself for Robinson. Maybe Ozigbo a little bit because you and I have talked about him forever. We've been watching him since he came out, since the Shrine game, actually. It's the first time we ever brought him up on this show. But he's on IR. Robinson's the guy. Minshew's there. He's got weapons, but what kind of fight mode will we see from Jacksonville this week?
Certainly, it could be enough to make them interesting for fantasy. The biggest story here for fantasy is the backfield. It's James Robinson's backfield, and they love him. They want to give him the opportunity. There's a question that even if he is good enough to hold on to the job, what's that worth? The Jacksonville running game. You have Chris Thompson doing the passing game. Chris Thompson's probably the better play this week in PPR leagues. He's not hurt yet. Ozigbo on IR. You have Ogunbowale, who's also a passing down back. So really, Robinson, he's the only guy that's going to take carries away from him. Laviska Shenault. And I mean, that we saw out of the Jags camp practice yesterday that beat writers can't say anything specific. But Laviska Shenault, one of the Jacksonville writers, saying they're doing very interesting things with him. So let's see. That's exciting, and that may be the story of the backfield at the end of the game, even though it's James Robinson at the beginning of the game. Robinson certainly went the heck flex in this one, although the Colts defense, I love this defense. You love it. The talent, the youth, the energy at every level. That's why you like the Colts as a potential Super Bowl contender. But on that Jag side, you're going to have DJ Chark putting on a show in camp. Last year, first half of the season, he was basically a wide receiver one. I would expect that to continue. You want to try to find a way to get Chark into your lineup against Xavier Rhodes, Rock Yassin. The best cornerback on this team is the slot corner. That's where Chenault's going to be lining up. And then we'll see about Chris Conley. We'll see about Keelan Cole. Tyler Eifert, another lap, kind of healthy.
Not the starter, though. Not the starter. Because what?
O'Shaughnessy.
Yep.
Right, who was a former Matt Waldman favorite. So we're trying to make the Jags as interesting as possible. We're sorry, Jags fans. Certainly, this is something that hopefully we will see the Jags do something like what the Dolphins did last year, figure out who fits in the future, figure out who doesn't. Boatload of picks coming up. So Jags fans, look to the future.
And this is where Robinson's going to have to come through, like KGB points out, and that Jake Gruden had nice comments about his pass blocking and receiving ability. If they're down by 21 points, they're not going to be running the ball. So it's James Robinson, the receiver, who becomes the more interesting asset. Okay, it is the Audible, and we move on to Cleveland and Baltimore. And those Browns revamped that offensive line. They're hoping to protect Baker Mayfield better this season. You've got Nick Chubb. You've got the newly paid Kareem Hunt. Okay, they lock him up. All right, Browns, we see what you're doing there. Obviously, ODB and everything that goes in with ODB and Jarvis Landry, all that. Well, Austin Hooper at tight end, not necessarily as exciting, Bloom. Low-end tight end one, volume guy. Well, how much volume is going to be there in this one for Cleveland?
This is probably going to be a pass-heavy game script for them. Remember, this is a Cleveland team. They've got some new faces at safety and linebacker. They trade for Ronnie Harrison, who didn't even win a starting job in that Jacksonville defense. There's a segue between games for you. This is going to be a rough game for Cleveland. And I would expect that you're probably going to see Baltimore defense being, again, one of the better plays this week because Cleveland's going to be out of the comfort zone that they're trying to create. The bumper bowling, as Matt Waldman put it. The bumpers are going to have to be lifted when you fall behind by 2 scores here. We have Nick Chubb, and again, not necessarily a Nick Chubb game script. I'm not saying to bench Nick Chubb. But remember, Baltimore also made some reinforcements this offseason because of the way they got drummed out of the playoffs by Derrick Henry. So they're going to be better against the run. Kareem Hunt, see, so many things have happened in this last week. Kareem Hunt got an extension. So Kareem Hunt is going to be a Brown for at least a couple of more years. Maybe he is more of a 1A. This is probably more of a Kareem Hunt game script than a Nick Chubb game script. Anyway, it is definitely an Odell Beckham game script, although it is against one of the best groups of cornerbacks in the league, if not the best group in the league. Still going to play Odell Beckham, but again, what we like about him is those play action deep shots whenever defenses have to overplay the run because the run game should be good. In the game scripts that are ahead, Beckham's going to have more of a chance for big plays. This is going to be a volume game, though, for him, as Jarvis Landry, one of those players being eased in off of hip surgery in the offseason. So maybe it is a decent Hooper game. 5 tight ends, Cease. They kept 5 tight ends. No trade market for David Njoku, or even if there was, is he going to play? He's a third-string tight end. They've got Pharaoh Brown, Steven Carlson, of course, Harrison Bryant, Matt Waldman favorite, rookie of the year of training camp, at least, for Cleveland. But I think with Baltimore, we're going to be watching, as far as their larger plot on defense, to someone like Tyus Bowser or Jalen Ferguson step up to help the edge rush. And no Earl Thomas. Deshaun Elliott taking the place there. See, how long are we going to wait for Earl Thomas to get signed somewhere?
Maybe after week 1, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure. Baltimore side, we are sure of Lamar Jackson. We are sure of what J.K. Dobbins. I know that Dobbins is at least a what the heck flex for me this week. We'll get to more what the heck flexes at the end of this show. But I look at that backfield. I'm like, plenty Ingram. There's plenty there for J.K. as well. And then even the chat room talking about Hollywood Brown versus Denzel Ward. Robert's bringing that up. That'll be a great matchup. We know Mandrew. You're starting Mandrew, right? You're starting Lamar Jackson. How much success and what other assets could be involved here, and what could be a big Ravens victory?
It should be. I think they're favored by 8. That's another thing to watch, by the way. Gamblers out there, gambling degenerates. The lines still look like they think there's going to be home field advantages and so on. I'm not sure if this one applies. But Ravens win by more than a score. I'll take that. This is an exciting... See, even though we saw the big unveil of the Ravens offense last year, I still feel like this is the second season. There's new stuff in store, new characters, new storylines. Devin Duvernay, J.K. Dobbins, a healthy Marquis Brown. Really the only downside here is no Marshall Yanda. Probable Hall of Famer. You got to replace him. They got Matt Skura back, who had a rough leg injury to end his 2019. So, yeah, we're going to be watching J.K. Dobbins roll. I still think this is about as safe a week to play Mark Ingram as you're going to have. But Dobbins, just like we're watching with Taylor for Indianapolis, can stake his claim to more work going forward. Marquise Brown, you got to play him. He had that big week 1 last year. It's still something to watch other than Marquise Brown. Miles Boykin, who had a good camp, could have that second-year leap. And if Brown can't stay healthy, then Boykin could be one of the hits of the year. Wasn't even getting drafted. Mark Andrews, you're excited to have him because of no Hayden Hurst. And they didn't sign Delaney Walker. They didn't sign somebody to come in and be a veteran presence at tight end to allow them to continue to have 2 tight ends in the passing game. They got Nick Boyle. He's more of a 6th offensive lineman. And then again, you got the Browns. Lots of uncertainty at linebacker. Lots of uncertainty at safety. This, again, should make you think Mark Andrews up the middle. This should make you think those big runs up the gut. As, the Cleveland, this is not a good first game for a new regime to show the direction of the franchise.
Not a good first game at all, but good luck anyway, Cleveland. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers against those Cincinnati Bengals. And let's quickly get through the Chargers side, Bloom, even though there is some interest there, because I really want to talk about Joe Burrow. I'm excited about the Bengals. We can't say that very often in the, 15 years of this show? How long have we said we're excited about the Bengals? It's been a while, but the Chargers side first. Austin Eckler, who's getting anything behind him or alongside him or what have you. Joshua Kelly, Justin Jackson's actually practicing. We'll see that. And probably no Mike Williams. Let me know if you think any different. They got a couple of rookies I like. Joe Reed, KJ Hill. Saw them at the All-Star road trip. But it's Keenan Allen as much as possible. Of course, Hunter Henry's healthy. Kind of in the Will Fuller thing. If you have Henry and you waited on tight end, he's your guy. Well, start him. He's as healthy as he's going to be this season. And then Tyrod Taylor, Mr. Safe with the football. I don't think that's going to change, honestly. So I really don't think there's any nuance there, Bloom. It's a Tyrod Taylor-led Chargers team. What's that mean?
It means boring. Maybe winning football, but boring football.
Yeah.
And again, and see, this is something I've cited on the show many, many times already this offseason. But again, Anthony Lynn, pretty fixated on limiting turnovers, which is not something that Phillip Rivers was doing last year. It is something that Tyrod Taylor did when he was with Anthony Lynn in Buffalo. Now, that doesn't mean that we're running away from this passing game the same way we were, because, again, Mike Williams, game time decision at best, but that concentrates more targets for Eckler, for Hunter Henry, for Keenan Allen, and they'll at least be viable plays, just as Tyrod Taylor will be a viable play. Now, remember, this isn't the Bengals defense that we saw at the end of the year last year. They went out and they spent money. They got DJ Reader up front. That may make Geno Atkins pop a little bit more. Remember, they have a lot of talented players on the edge there. Carlos Dunlap, Sam Hubbard, Carl Lawson. And they spent on the secondary, too, even though they lost Trey Waynes before the season started. Still got William Jackson the third. They do have some young linebackers, which fits right in. There's Anthony Lynn saying, let's attack those linebackers with the running game. Who are they going to attack it with? Some Austin Eckler, but this is Josh Kelly's big chance right away. Looks like the toe injury that was limiting Justin Jackson in the camp was not something that's going to keep him from playing this week. But if Kelly decisively outplays him, you may see a pretty big role for him. Of course, we'll be watching very closely who gets those goal line carries. If they do get the goal line carries, I think Anthony Lynn would probably be happy sees to have a battle of field goals here with the Money Badger. Joe Burrow may have different ideas.
Joe Burrow has those ideas because he wants to set the league on fire, man. And we look at this team has the capability of doing that. AJ Green is cleared, and he's at least a what the heck flex?
Yeah.
The way he was getting drafted and the way people pretty much forgot about him, like, okay, I'm going to take that all day and twice on Sundays, especially this one. As a what the heck flex, AJ Green, are you kidding me? You got Tyler Boyd there. The only thing they don't have is a tight end, Bloom. But they've got receivers falling out of their pockets. Even Auden Tate, we talk about John Ross and that speed. And, of course, Joe Mixon doing his thing. So excitement for the Bengals. Does it get matched by the play on the field, or do we come away from Sunday thinking same old Bengals?
It's kind of sad, Cease, in a way, because right off the bat, first afternoon game slate, only 3 games. But, hey, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Arizona. And how are we going to get some time to watch Joe Burrow with those 2 games going on, setting the tone for those divisions this year? I'm so excited to watch Joe Burrow. So excited. The number one rookie I'm excited to watch this weekend, absolutely, is Joe Burrow. And it's that steely calm about the guy. He looks like he's got the 100-yard stare, 1,000-yard stare already. Certainly, with the offensive line he has in front of him, he's going to need that toughness. But as you said, he's surrounded by weapons now. Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram. I'm going to say welcome to the NFL, Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow had a really good offensive line at LSU. Maybe that allowed him to have some sense of being in a comfort zone, even outside of the pocket. We'll see how much the game speeding up affects him. Maybe you're not going to play Joe Burrow week 1 if you're skeptical. Maybe you're going to play the Chargers defense, even without Derwin James. We can't have anything nice for the Chargers in week 1. But Joe Mixon, new contract. You have to like that. We'll see about migraines potentially being an issue. AJ Green, as you said, sees at least a what the heck flex. This is a pretty good group of cornerbacks. Chris Harris, by the way, now a Los Angeles Charger. You got to like that. That's more Tyler Boyd matchup, although Boyd is in that Justin Jefferson role. So, we're looking to see how Burrow made use of the players he had at LSU and how that translates. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Giovanni Bernard might be more of a similar skill set, but that's Joe Mixon, getting Joe Mixon more involved as a receiver. You had Justin Jefferson in the slot. That's Tyler Boyd. But also we heard that Burrow was doing a tremendous job placing the ball up high for Auden Tate, which is also how A.J. Green wins. It's also how T. Higgins wins. Also, you still have John Ross. He's fast. He's quick. And see, even the other Mike Thomas. The other Mike Thomas made this team.
Nice.
And he's going to get some playing time. So, yeah, their cup runneth over with all kinds of receivers. C.J. Uzoma, we'll see if there's something there with the tight end group. But it's going to be really interesting, really exciting to see if Joe Burrow and his magic can be an instant hit behind this offensive line against this defense. But we'll be having to turn the channel back or having multiple TVs because NFL gave us some pretty good divisional matchups in the afternoon this week.
And Higgins reminds me of Cortland Sutton, and I loves me some Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
So there we have it as we are going through part 2 of the week 1 preview here on the Audible. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is waiting for this one. It is Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. It is Tampa Bay versus the New Orleans Saints. It's down there in your part of the country, Bloom, and beautiful New Orleans, the Big Easy, the Crescent City, and Tom Brady's side first. Okay, Ronald Jones, you're going to hold on to the job. That's one of the first things we can talk about. Okay, Mike Evans probably not going to play. Bruce Arians saying game time decision, not practicing with a hamstring. Like, this is something very delicate for fantasy GMs to watch over, Bloom, because you got Mike Evans, you're going to start him, of course, and now you might not because of that hamstring. What's that mean for Chris Godwin? What's it mean for anybody else in that passing game? And then, of course, those tight ends. Does it just mean more of Gronk or more of OJ, a dash of Cameron Brate? Lots of weapons. But this debut of Brady in a Buccaneers uniform, it's going to look really weird, Bloom.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be watching.
Yeah, Rob Gronkowski in a Buccaneers uniform, too. Wow, the layers of the unveil here, Cease, because there's all the different roles. How's the backfield going to be split up? Scott Miller coming off of a good camp. How are the tight ends going to split up their targets? Excellent tight end group here. How does Tom Brady fit in a Bruce Arians offense? How much does it look like a Bruce Arians offense? Is it a pass-heavy offense? Is it more balanced, as we saw early last year with the Buccaneers? Their defense is still good. And, oh, yeah, there's the Saints, who did everything they could to get Jadeveon Clowney. Sean Payton was at Jadeveon Clowney's house. They were going to trade a second-round pick to get $5 million off the books so they could have Jadeveon Clowney. So the Saints, can you feel the desperation? See, that's not just the humidity down here. That is the desperation to bring home one more Lombardi trophy. And, of course, remember, defense-wise, they added Janoris Jenkins last year during the season, still have him. So whether or not we have Mike Evans, that could be a really big deal for Chris Godwin, because you'd much rather have Godwin facing more of Jenkins than Lattimore. If Evans is out, then that makes Chris Godwin's matchup more tough. And remember, if it's a 2 tight end offense, then that's less Chris Godwin in the slot, and that's where he was doing really well last year. The backfield, so I'm just going to throw my hands in the air. There's some of these backfields where we're getting a lot of questions, and really what you're asking us is, how are these players going to play? Because it's up to the players. It's up to Ronald Jones, right? We can say this much about the Tampa backfield. If Ronald Jones goes out and plays well, then Ronald Jones is going to hold on to probably the largest share of this backfield.
Right.
Do you believe in Ronald Jones? It isn't. Leonard Fournette is not so good that they're going to force him on the field. They want Ronald Jones to show that the faith they put in him was well-founded. And then, of course, you have LaShawn McCoy. And there are scenarios where LaShawn McCoy ends up being the most valuable running back in this backfield over the course of the year. Those scenarios are Leonard Fournette is just a guy. Ronald Jones makes too many mistakes. And Leonard Fournette is that veteran presence. Remember, McCoy. McCoy is close to like 500 career receptions. McCoy is a good passing game running back, and that could end up being one of the most valuable parts of this offense. And again, with the Howard Gronk, we may have been drafting Rob Gronkowski as the tight end to get in this offense when all along it was O.J. Howard, who had a really good camp. But O.J. Howard at some point has to carry some of this talent over. And, hey, the Saints might have some urgency, but Tampa has Josh Rosen on the practice squad, so they're looking to the future, too. They've got some urgency. This is a fantastic tilt to start week 1.
Well, and Herm brings it up here in the chat room. Bucks O-line. They better give Brady that time. Got to watch out for that time, girl. All right, let's watch out for those Saints, man. And, of course, Emmanuel Sanders there. When we look at, things that are changed, things that are different, they actually have a threat opposite of Michael Thomas. So, obviously, you're starting Alvin Kamara. You're starting Michael Thomas. You're starting Drew Brees. People in the chat wondering about Taysom Hill. And I'm thinking gonna do is at least a what the heck flex this week. Love it.
Yeah. Tampa's defense is not a liability, okay? First of all, you can't run on them. You're just not going to run up the gut on them. It's just a waste of time. With how many pounds of human being do they have in the middle there? The Vea and Sue combo. But they also have some young Cornerbacks, young secondary. See, how many times are you getting sick of hearing this is going to make you feel old? Because I already feel old. Antoine Winfield Jr. We saw Antonio Gates Jr. and Frank Gore Jr. Coming up in the college football beat too. Antonio Winfield Jr. helping at safety, but they've got a lot of young players in the secondary, so they're going to be tested against Michael Thomas, against Emmanuel Sanders, and certainly this is a decent matchup. And if you expect Tampa to be more pass heavy, you expect it to be more of a high scoring game script, then, and of course, even without, so Cease, we're going to throw out home field advantage in some ways, but we still like Drew Brees in a dome a lot better than we like Drew Brees outdoors. That's just been a truism throughout the course of his career. So you like the downfield passing game a little more here. Jared Cook, you like Emmanuel Sanders, of course, Michael Thomas. Alvin Kamara, still no official new contract yet, but it sounds like everything is blown over there. Remember, they like Ty Montgomery, not that he's going to get a ton of snaps or touches in this one, but that changes the backfield picture. This Saints offense was difficult enough to slow down without an Emmanuel Sanders. Remember, it was Emmanuel Sanders who had a chance to make the game-winning play in the Super Bowl.
He's open, Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy. We'll talk about that in a second. So, Tampa, it may be all about the Tampa offense, but if Tampa wants to win this division or contend for this division, their defense has to be able to slow down the Saints. That's going to be tough to do. This could just be a breathtaking game, a back and forth game. And is it the record, Cease, the combined oldest, speaking of sounding, feeling old, what are these guys? They're both north of 40, right? I mean, have we ever even had
combined court age is like 80.
80 plus, like 83, 84. So, hey, don't give up on your dreams, even if you're in your 30s.
Jack Kirby didn't start drawing Fantastic Four until he was 44 years old.
Hey.
I'm just saying, that's the king, man. R.I.P. to the king. That's everyone's like, what? The comic book nerds are like, oh, yeah. I know. Okay, we'll all be watching that game, and we'll all be saying hello to your new favorite place to play fantasy football for real money. It's Underdog Fantasy. With Underdog, all you need to do is the fun part, the draft. Forget about injuries, trades, waivers, setting lineups. Just set it. Forget it. Wait for the winnings to come in. This year, they have a $1 million tournament. That's right. Just draft the best team, and you have a shot at $1 million in prizes. Sign up for Underdog today and enter the Best Ball Mania for a chance at $1 million in prizes by going to UnderdogFantasy.com. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, or searching for Underdog Fantasy in your app store. Be sure to enter the code FBG after you make your first deposit. Okay. Yes. And we got to remind people it's the last second, and I know you're feeling the itch. Impulse. I get the impulse buy. Cease when I'm in the grocery store. If nobody's in line in front of me, I can get out of there. I'll have the impulse buy. But impulse buy time, folks, and one that could change your life. The 2020 FFPC main event. And if you haven't entered it before, your first team will be $100 off if you use the FBG 100 code at the checkout page. First prize, $500,000. You also get discounts on additional teams. So I know we're late bloomers, so to speak, with our fantasy football, waiting to see if everything's going to go off without a hitch. And it is indeed going off. Sans hitch. You can put your beliefs to the test in the FFPC main event. Just remember that code FBG100 for $100 off. See, we've been doing this show for 15 years. Now, the audio version, of course, the Audible, everyone subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, we're on them all. But S-Champ 21. Yeah. Just check us out on YouTube, man. So thank you. We appreciate you guys. We have our old fallbacks, speaking of being old, but for 15 years we've been doing this show, and we're always getting new viewers, new listeners. So S-Champ 21, thanks, brother. Thanks for checking out. Thanks for subscribing, doing all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe. We still got 4 games left in part 2 of the week 1 preview here on the Audible, and it's Arizona versus San Fran. He's open, Jimmy, but first, Kyler knows they're open because they're always open. And that offense, oh my God, DeAndre Hopkins, the debut of DeAndre Hopkins. And we've got all these new debuts, right? Bloom, we just talked about Tom Brady and all this kind of stuff. Like, whose debut is going to be the largest, the most impactful? Like, oh my God, this is why they got the guy. This is why they paid the guy. It's probably going to be DeAndre Hopkins. It certainly could be DeAndre Hopkins. We know what Kenyan Drake's going to do as a runner and a receiver. We know these guys are going to be schemed to get open. We know that Kyler Murray's going to find them and come through. Are the Cardinals taking more of a leap in year 2 with Cliff Kingsbury than people think? San Francisco's defense, a tough test. How are the Cardinals going to be up to that test?
This is exciting. This is exciting because it is year 2 for Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. And remember, Kyler Murray wasn't even concentrating on football until last year. So is it the addition of DeAndre Hopkins that opens up dimensions in this offense that we did not see last year? Is it having Kenyan Drake for a whole offseason? Remember, the running game, I'd say, and this might be just more of a reflection on the wide receiver play last year, the running game was more impressive than the passing game last year. Remember, this is a middling to poor offensive line, at least on paper. So when we saw Chase Edmonds slicing and dicing the Giants, when we saw Kenyan Drake slicing and dicing teams, helping us win fantasy championships, one of the things we have to say, hey, Cliff Kingsbury can scheme up a run game too. Now you can have the run game and the pass game hinging off of each other, and hopefully Kyler Murray, who is good as he was last year as far as natural talent, not the best feel, right? Not the most in tune with the game, anticipating, making quick decisions. Kenyan Drake, all the walking boot stuff is behind us, so you're going to play Kenyan Drake this week. Obviously, you drafted him to play him, but we're going to watch Chase Edmonds roll here. Chase Edmonds might not be a pure backup, but might be a pure backup last year whenever he was back on the field behind Kenyan Drake. It was coming off of a hamstring injury. We'll see how we can factor that in to his projections. DeAndre Hopkins, was it the hamstring or was it the contract situation? We'll see a little bit of that. Certainly, you're going to have Richard Sherman on Hopkins. Maybe it's more of a Kirk game. Maybe it's more of a Fitzgerald game. Maybe it's an Andy Isabella game. We'll pour one out for Hakeem Butler. I don't think he even ended up on a practice squad. See, how did that happen?
It's so weird, man.
Yeah, well, it's the Matt Waldman great emotional divide. Some of these guys, maybe it's just the intensity of the commitment. I don't want to speculate. Certainly not any lack of physical ability, and Isabella doesn't lack physical ability, at least in terms of straight line speed. We're going to watch Dan Arnold in the red zone. But see, so you're right. The San Francisco defense, the Arizona offensive line versus the San Francisco defensive line, might be the key matchup here that makes it all go. Remember, they drafted Javon Kendall, who's more of a two-gapper than DeForest Buckner. You've got Nick Bosa. You've got Eric Armstead. You've got a D Ford healthy. Quan Alexander is healthy. They've got a tremendous trio of linebackers there. So maybe this is one where, as excited as we are to watch the Arizona offense, the San Francisco defense says, we're still here.
We're still here, and we can still be dominant. By the way, Javon Kendall is not Aaron Donald.
No.
And by the way, analytics people like Aaron Donald, like, please stop. Just stop. You're not making yourself look good.
No.
You're blasting on Aaron Donald for some bull stuff. Sorry, Joe. It's close. It was close. See, YouTube's like, demonetize. He almost said the cuss word.
Right.
All right, you'll be fine, YouTube. Oh my God, are we adults or not? Didn't SVP drop the S-bomb on SportsCenter? Right?
It's slowly going to slide, Cease.
Dude, it should just slide anyway.
Exactly. The community standards, just since we've been kids to adults now, community standards, the things, I don't care what words you use, just the concepts and pictures that people can draw in basic broadcast TV, it's changed a lot. We're old. That's the theme of the show. We're old. It's week 1. Yeah. We've been doing this for a long time. We're old, and we should be able to say whatever we want.
Yeah. Javon Kendall is not Aaron Donald, but I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he's very, very disruptive. And I saw Aaron Donald at the Senior Bowl, and he was just on a different planet. Yeah. So Kinlaw is very, very exciting. By the way, speaking of getting older, look at this, dude. Our man
Mookie.
Mookie. Happy birthday, Mookie.
You the man.
Yeah, definitely one of our favorite guys out there. Love you guys in the chat room, and love talking about the 49ers in this game. Can't forget about them, right? Okay, run heavy. Yes. Which receiver's going to play? Like, we still have question marks because Debo being banged up, and, we didn't think he was going to play, yet they're Kyle Shanahan having the gamesmanship. Brandon Ayuk, he's been banged up. He was supposed to be their guy, their favorite receiver that they picked up. Now he's may or may not going to play. Is there so much a lack of clarity? Lots of Kittle,
Mostert.
Like, how are you breaking this one down from a fantasy perspective?
maybe the key name is, and again, Cease, this is a moment now that we're previewing all these games and we're trying to capture everything we're just watching for. Jordan Reed's a 49er. Jordan Reed can still play if healthy, and
Right.
well, he's as healthy as he's going to
Healthy
be.
kinda.
Right, and this, let me put it this way, and I'm not saying Jordan Reed, what the heck flex. Maybe Jordan Reed is a DFS Hail Mary kind of play, low-owned play, but doesn't he make sense for this week? Because I don't think we're going to see Deebo Samuel. Don't think we're going to see Brandon Ayuk. It just doesn't make sense. I know that Arizona wants to stake their claim for divisional supremacy here, and this is an important game, but you don't want to rush Samuel back out on the field. The foot issue really hurt them losing Trent Taylor. He never got over the hump last year. And with Ayuk, hamstring, again, high risk of re-injury if you rush these guys back. So we're going to see Kendrick Bourne and Trent Taylor and Dante Pettis one more chance to make an impact here. That means the passing game is going to run through the tight ends and maybe Jerick McKinnon. Remember, we saw a lot of good buzz around Jerick McKinnon that he looked like Jerick McKinnon, as explosive, as quick as they had hoped. So Jerick McKinnon not only potentially making an impact in the passing game, Cease, but if he looks like Jerick McKinnon of old, that they paid, $28 million 4-year deal. Of course, they restructured it, pay cuts, etc. since then because of the injuries. But if he's that Jerick McKinnon, then Kyle Shanahan has something else to play with in the running game. But first and foremost, it's Raheem Mostert. And all the reports out of the training camp for San Francisco, Mostert's the number one back. Mostert running like the number one back, maybe even a little more involved in the passing game. Arizona's run defense, remember, they added Isaiah Simmons and Devondre Campbell and Devon Kennard, who I think helps with the pass rushes. This was the pre-Simmons falling to number 8, so they've bolstered their linebacker core. Of course, they still got Chandler Jones. You just don't want to let Jimmy Garoppolo hold the ball for too long, basically. I think you're going to see a close-to-the-vest, conservative offense. They do at least have Trent Williams. That was kind of a big deal again. Just a footnote to the draft that San Francisco had one of the best of this era, Joe Staley, retire, and they traded for Trent Williams. Trent Williams versus Chandler Jones. See, so if we were going to talk about just one-on-one matchup to watch, just to see two of the very best at the top of their game going against each other, that's exciting. This is an exciting game to watch. And other thing to watch here with San Francisco's line, Ben Garland was back, but they've got a problem at center. So, this is something to look forward to when, speaking of Aaron Donald, when you have to play some of those guys on the interior defensive line. Maybe not anybody to worry about too much on the Arizona interior defensive line, but this is a great game for Kyler, for Cliff, for the Cardinals as an organization to say, yeah, we're in it to win it. We're ready. Year 2, all systems go.
All systems go. You want a Lassie Bark Bloom? Not because I do a show every night with a former 49ers coach, but just know that they have plans for Jet McKinnon.
Yeah.
They have plans for him. So let's see if that comes to fruition. Let's see what comes to fruition in Sunday Night Football. Dallas and the Rams. Okay, Rams. But Dallas, dude. Dallas. And Amari Cooper's a little bit banged up. So does that just mean more CeeDee Lamb? Yes, please. More Michael Gallup. Do not forget about Michael Gallup in this. And I understand when people, and this is a common, again, Bloom with 15 years, been doing it a long time, like a common, like, oh, well, this receiver's added, so that's going to take targets away. This is going to make everybody better. Look at your coverage. It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality of those targets. And if you're single covering CeeDee Lamb because you've got to bracket Amari or you're worried about Michael Gallup on this play, you've got guys that can take advantage of that. Gallup, incredibly talented. CeeDee Lamb's like a new DeAndre Hopkins, like just all over the place talent for this team, let alone Zeke. What do we hear? What did McCarthy say? They're going to use Zeke more as a receiver, maybe in Tony Pollard as a receiver. Yeah. Like, okay, so what do we have to worry about? Blake Jarwin here? It's Dak, man. Dak, go get that money. Go get that money and toss it up to those trio of wide receivers.
I was going to make a McCarthyism joke here, Cease, but I figured, maybe it's a little too close to home because it's Mike McCarthy. And it's the incredible star-studded array of assistant coaches. I don't want to say it's now or never, but I do think that this is a team that can credibly contend for a Super Bowl championship this year, facing the Rams, and they thumped the Rams. They missed the playoffs last year, but they thumped the Rams. Could Dak be the most valuable quarterback in fantasy football, most valuable quarterback in football? See, doesn't it just seem like the football gods are making a script here so that Jerry's going to have to pay Dak like $50 million a year next year? Like every
Right.
year that you put it off, the price goes up by a factor of $10 million.
Way to go, Jerry.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and of course, the Rams just signed Jalen Ramsey. We could get into some interesting team building stuff here. Is it really worth it to spend 2 first-round picks and a top-of-the-market contract for a shutdown corner? Okay, Jalen Ramsey took away Mari Cooper. What are the Cowboys going to do? CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Blake Jarwin, Ezekiel Elliott in the passing game. He winked, Cease. He winked. He winked when they asked him about his passing game involvement. So what does that mean? Michael Gelkin reporting about that. This is a great week to play Blake Jarwin because the Rams have problemas at linebacker. They lost Traven Howard. They're a little banged up at safety. So this is where you want to attack this team. See how the replacement Joe Looney for Travis Frederick, career that ended too early. Other thing to watch here, by the way, Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith both banged up during training camp, and this is not a team that can afford to lose one of their offensive tackles. At least they want to keep this offense humming, but you may see a lot of Ezekiel Elliott. Remember, Ashawn Robinson, Rams signed to be a nasty nose tackle. He's out with, I think, a heart issue. They have a lot of issues up the gut, so it seems like Elliott and Jarwin could be the guys, but I don't expect the Cowboys to have much more trouble than they did last year moving the ball in this Rams defense, and I think they were in the 40s in that game.
Here's another running back issue, Bloom. And when Sean McVay says that he loves what Kyle Shanahan's done with the running back by committee, well, guess what's coming for Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson when he's healthy? Your RBBC. Also a tight end by committee. Not many people are talking about this because it's not like Gerald Everett's a slappy. Not at all. He's really good. And Tyler Higbee proved whenever it was hurt last year, he can be really good. So, okay, let's talk about this Rams side. A little less interesting than the Cowboys, less exciting, Bloom, but issues that fantasy gyms, you're placing your chips. All right, this is like roulette, Rams roulette. Where you're placing your chips at, what's going to hit? Always the black, never the red, by the way. That's my main rule. Always the black, never the red.
Yeah, one of these times we'll have to announce when we're at a roulette table when gambling is legal in all 50 states, and we can all get together and view joys that are less bright than playing roulette with Cecil Lammey. Rams roulette. And you see this one kind of like the escalators, like the Rams are on the escalator down and the Cowboys on the escalator up, passing by like, hey.
They're waving.
Yeah, exactly. See you later. But the windows close. You talk about windows cease. The window closed, slam shut on the fingers of the Rams, and they're going to figure out just how far they can slide. Dallas defense is beatable by Jared Goff. And the whole key here is Jared Goff is a matchup play in fantasy leagues. Dallas's defense, they have an edge rush that's interesting with Alden Smith and Everson Griffin added. Certainly some holes in their secondary. Will the Rams be able to take advantage of it? Or they can take advantage of it as they're down by 2 or 3 scores. So that's certainly something to watch here. And that would point towards Robert Woods. That would point towards Cooper Kupp. Probably even both of the tight ends here as low tight end 1 plays if we expect high volume. Van Jefferson's lurking. But for now, the target in his scope is Josh Reynolds and playing time to get ahead of Josh Reynolds. But Van Jefferson, so advanced, and it helps whenever your dad's an NFL wide receiver coach and former NFL wide receiver, Sean Jefferson, that he could turn this back into a 3 wide receiver offense, not just in terms of the default formation, but also how we split up the fantasy targets, and then how do we split up the fantasy work for Cam Akers versus Darrell Henderson, who's going to play, versus Malcolm Brown, who probably get any touchdown opportunities, not that you're going to play him. So this is not the game. Maybe in a game where the Rams are favored, maybe in a game when we think the Rams running game can get back on track, we want to dabble in this backfield. Not in this one. This is more of a fact-finding game here. Rams offensive line, by the way, still not exactly a strength of the offense, so that might keep them in the doldrums here. Maybe they should have put Tampa New Orleans on Sunday night instead of this one, Cease.
Yeah, this one. Monday night is interesting, Bloom, because of the matchups. Now it is a Steelers and a Broncos show. But as we get to Monday Night Football, before our What the Heck Flex is the first Monday night game. And congratulations to Louis Riddick, to Steve Levy, to Brian Greasy. I feel, if I may go off on a mini rant, I feel football fans are a lot smarter than people think. I've always taken issue with Bob Costas for like talking down to football fans. Like, you're silly. I'm a baseball fan. And it's like, yeah, football fans, there's a guy with the 2 beers in the hat, right, with the straws coming down, painting his face and saying, you the man after every play. Like, yeah, there's that guy. But there's also a ton of really smart football fans. And when you get to listen to, and Steve Levy running the show, Steve knows how to do that. But when you get to listen to a guy like Louis Riddick, and Brian does a great job as well in giving us insight, like, I think this is what football fans are thirsting or craving. So whereas I'd never liked the testator, like, let's make up a nickname for everybody, and Booger was awful, like, and it's a tough job, right? I could never do it. It's very, very tough. So when you have that talent like these guys have, I'm just looking forward to that, Bloom, because we finally get kind of a booth. You wanted to be Howard Cosell growing up.
Yeah, right.
So you understand what it takes to make a great booth in Monday Night Football.
It's the scope. It's the grandeur of the stage. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, when you hear that, especially if you like we are a kid of televised football, is still something very new as far as production values and the just the epic scope of Monday Night Football. And I think that Louis Riddick can help bring that back. And as far as the football for the thinking fan, again, this is one of the mission statements of Draft Guys. If there wasn't a massive appetite for the thinking fans, we wouldn't be going on year 15. Fantasy football wouldn't be an industry, et cetera, et cetera. It's like war. There's a layer of war that is just who can stick his bayonet in the other guy first. But there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of human behavior. There's a lot of all kinds of disciplines involved in the art of war. And I love that the NFL and coverage of the NFL has really embraced that. And sees, why are we talking about this? Because poor Daniel Jones. We all patted Daniel Jones on the back and said, you're really not that bad, right, Danny boy. You think you're going to make it in this league. Mm-hmm. But this is tough, man. Schedule makers not doing him any favors.
Joe Judge won't be saying his name after this game.
No.
Just like you refused to say his name at the combine. Like, come on, Joe Judge. What is it about former Patriots coaches? Except for Brian Flores. Like, everyone's an ass except for Brian Flores. Brian Flores is like the coolest guy out there. Everybody loves him. And then any other former Patriots coach, Matt Patricia, where's my pencil, right?
Right.
I put a pencil in my ear. This shows I'm smart. Am I right, guys? I'm totally smart. Yes, sir. I'm going to do the rest of the show like this. See? Look at that. Look like a dumbass with a pencil in my ear. Josh McDaniels was an ass. Bill O'Brien's unhinged. Like, come on. Seriously. Anyway, why are we talking about this? Well, poor Daniel Jones. Let's talk about the Steelers side of things first and foremost. It is Steelers. It is Giants, the first Monday Night Football game. And the Steelers are using James Conner as that bell cow. Okay, cool. I still expect a sprinkling of the other backs, Bloom, including Anthony McFarland. We may vary on our excitement levels for McFarland, a guy that might eventually take over in their backfield. We'll see. James Conner got to stay healthy, but that's it. Big Ben is back. So how much back is he? What does that do for Juju? Like, there's a lot of excitement around this passing game. If we can say Ben is back to being close to Ben. But I look at the guys in his draft class. Eli's done, and Phillip Rivers looks like he's done. Don't tell Frank Reich. But, like, so is Ben done? I don't know. And they don't have anybody behind. Mason Rudolph's terrible. So, okay.
Josh Dobbs.
If you believe that brought him back, the egghead quarterback, if you believe in Ben, then you're going to believe in the Steelers offense, which has plenty of assets, wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs.
Yeah, this is an exciting reveal, more exciting than last year. I was on an airplane watching the Steelers-Patriots game to open last year, week 1. I almost wish the plane crashed if there wasn't other people on the plane with me watching that one. With the Steelers offense ready for takeoff. And Jay Moeller on the chat room mentions Matt Canada. Cease, have you heard of this stuff pre-snap motion? It's this newfangled thing in football where you're allowed to actually have guys moving before the snap as long as they're not moving towards the line of scrimmage. It's not like arena football. All right. You don't get a running start. But they're doing it. So in addition to Ben Roethlisberger, and if you think Ben Roethlisberger is going to crash and burn, keeping with the airplane metaphor here, there's no sign of that from training camp. He's svelte. His arm is good. He even said that he's been bothered by this for a long time. So maybe we see Roethlisberger perform better than he has in previous years. A little bit more mobile. That's about the only more mobile he can get. But Ben Roethlisberger against this Giants defense, he's going to have a lot of guys to pick on. Logan Ryan. I know they paid Logan Ryan, but still, he's a guy you pick on. Corey Ballantyne. Even James Bradbury, their big signing as a number one cornerback. You don't think shut down cornerback when you think of him. And they lost Xavier McKinney. I think Logan Ryan's going to play a similar role to what McKinney, the second round pick, was going to play. Edge rush, they're going to rely on Marcus Golden and O'Shane Shimonese. So that's the one for the name game. It starts with X if you're playing the NFL name game. The point here is... Right, good one. The point here is that Steelers offense should have a lot of success in this one. Maybe not running early on in the game, but you're going to play James Conner. As you said, Cecil, we're going to see Benny Snell, who's also slimmed down a little bit. We're going to see some Anthony McFarland, maybe even Jalen Samuels. Remember, Matt Canada coached Samuels and McFarland in college. I think you're going to play it straight up and play Juju the way you normally would because, again, the matchup's here, but don't be surprised if Deontay Johnson has a big game. And then we're watching who's first in line to get fed. Is it Chase Claypool after a big summer, or is it James Washington who can still play? I mean, this isn't a bust. It isn't like the fact that the Deontay Johnson and Claypool have so much buzz around them isn't because Washington isn't a good player. He's still the best above the rim. We'll see if Claypool, because of his size and speed, can make that more important. And then see, just to complicate things even further, we got talking 4 wide receivers. Let's talk Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron had a big summer. Eric Ebron could be Ben's number one guy in the red zone. This team could also go with more 2 tight ends with Vance McDonald there. Main thing as a Steelers fan, I think we're watching is how much of the offense being poor was the quarterback play, and how much was that, maybe without Mike Munchak, the offensive line isn't as good. Maybe this just isn't as good of an offense as we thought it was. Again, hoping that some more scheme help from Matt Canada can help. Ben being back can help because, again, we've already talked about this. You got the Chiefs, you got the Ravens in your own division, you got the Colts, you got the Bills who are surging. I mean, this is, to even win a playoff game in the AFC this year is going to be an accomplishment.
Yeah, big time accomplishment. By the way, James Washington is just one of those guys that gets lost in the shuffle. How many times have we seen that with Steelers receivers? Yeah. Whether it's Emmanuel, or who never had even a 100-yard game with the Steelers.
Right.
And then goes on to great things with the Broncos. Like we've seen it before. Mike Wallace was similar that way. Like we'll see it again, probably with James Washington on a different team. Let's talk about the Giants. Lots of Saquon, as much Saquon as you can handle, but what does that mean against this swarming Steelers defense? It's going to make Daniel Jones look really, really bad.
Yeah, I'm afraid the one thing you don't want Daniel Jones to be doing is thinking. Remember, they've got Nate Solder opted out, so you got the rookie Andrew Thomas, and I know he was the number 4 pick, and he's the safest pick of the offensive tackles in this great class of offensive tackles, but come on. This is problems, because you don't want Daniel Jones, who has a bit of a blind spot in terms of awareness, thinking, because he's doing the new Jason Garrett offense, he's going to be thinking while Bud Dupree and TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward, who just got a new contract, only free agent the Steelers are going to keep probably, Stephon Tuitt, these guys are coming for you. And you don't have time to think. You don't have time to remember, wait, in this play call, is this the route combination? That's over. As soon as you start to get out of the moment, it's over. So I would say for the Giants, if Daniel Jones emerges from this game without going through concussion protocol or limping off the field or holding his arm dangling beside his body, it was probably a success. Welcome to the NFL in this offense. Daniel Jones had some games last year against poor defenses that he was really good for fantasy. This is not a poor defense. Barkley's the key. Cecil, I'll go basketball on you. The Nuggets are still in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, barely. Clippers are up 3-1.
Right. So we'll go basketball and the old triangle and 2 defense, right? I mean, you really basically don't just have one spy on Saquon Barkley. You have 2 guys Devin Bush and Vince Williams, both the inside linebackers, say you're just going to follow him wherever he goes because you just don't know if Daniel Jones is going to get time to throw. If he does, he's going to throw to Sterling Shepard. Probably not as much to Darius Slayton. Those throws are going to take time to develop downfield. Maybe some Golden Tate, but Shepard was the number one receiver in camp, and he should get a lot of targets, as should Evan Engram. Because Evan Engram is healthy, and Evan Engram certainly is a player that if the Giants can move the ball, Ingram's going to be part of that. Those new tackles are going to be tested. Daniel Jones and his awareness and his processing speed is going to be tested. Steelers, prime time under Mike Tomlin, usually a winning proposition as it is. This will be the appetizer, and then Cease. It's a Broncos show.
It is. Before we get there, though, as our man Robert points out,
lifetime Steeler. Ryan Shazier.
Yeah. Love it, man. Love it.
Watching the clip of him yanking the ball out of Jeremy Hill's hand ruined Jeremy Hill's career and added to the misery of the Bengals. So, yeah, Ryan Shazier certainly is going to always be a very inspiring Steeler. Shaleeve, I think, is your 26 shirt. Look that up. They make great shirts. If you want to show your support, that's a good one.
It is a good one. I don't think this game's going to be that good or necessarily interesting. It's Broncos Titans to wrap things up from the Mile High City. If they show the crowd, I might be in it.
Wait, one of those cutouts is a real person.
One of those cutouts is actually moving.
Call security.
I am cardboard at sometimes. But let's talk about this Titans team traveling to face Denver. You got no Von Miller.
Right.
But you have lots of Derrick Henry. A.J. Brown on A.J. Bouye. I'm taking Brown all day.
Yeah.
I'm taking Brown all day. No Miller, no pressure on Tannehill. It's going to light him up. Bradley Chubb's like 75% healthy. Okay. Malik Reed's a guy, basically. So the Broncos are going in with no pass rush to speak of, really, because of Chubb's injury. And, he's not yet 100%. You're going to have Tannehill with all day. Jonnu Smith, by the way, if you're playing DFS,
right,
you're stacking, you need a tight end. Broncos cannot cover tight ends. Jonnu Smith, A.J. Brown, about to go off. Now, Corey Davis against Bryce Callahan? You kidding me? Even Corey Davis could have a big game in this one by Corey Davis standards, Bloom. So again, it should be run heavy. Mike Vrabel, who did not say much yesterday, Bloom, and by the way, started early. Oh. So when I jumped on, it was like, "Hey, we're done. Thanks, Mike Vrabel." But anyway, I'm complaining, Bloom.
Yeah, it's okay.
Titans fans may not be complaining after this one.
Yeah, you're complaining because you know what your week of shows on Denver Talk Radio is going to be like after this one. Unless, it's exciting and they pull the sword from the stone. Nothing's really changed for the Titans. Well, Dennis Kelly's in at right tackle. I mean, this is the same offense. Corey Davis is a little healthier. Lots and lots of Derrick Henry. Run. Well, Jarrell Casey, earn your money here. And yeah, you really like A.J. Brown in this one. You really like Jonnu Smith. You like Jonnu Smith because of how much trouble the Broncos have with tight ends. You like A.J. Brown because, I would think A.J. Bouye, as we saw when he was with the Jags, I mean, this is and I get it, right? I forget what coach it was that talked about that you want to mesh. I think it was Pepper Johnson, and talking about how this didn't happen under one of the teams he was at, but it's something that's a hallmark of what the Patriots do, which is match your coverage and your pressure. I mean, you want to have a coverage approach that meshes with when and where the pressure is going to come from.
Right.
Well, what kind of cornerback is A.J. Bouye when there's no pressure?
Bad.
Gave
up the most receiving yards last year. In 14 games, gave up 806 receiving yards. Number one in the league.
Yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. A.J. Bouye in a classic Vic Fangio defense, hey, he can make some stuff happen. But when you don't have Miller and maybe don't have Bradley Chubb, that is a problem. So that poor Broncos defense is going to look like, a deer in the headlights here, hanging on for dear life.
Now, hanging on and maybe fighting back, the way that you can get around that, and this is where the fantasy spin comes in, because if their defense is not so very good, and even with Miller, I had serious questions because his linebackers can't cover, and serious questions because that's secondary. Bryce Callahan, like all these Sutton plays, Bloom in training camp, everyone's like, look at Cortland Sutton, this big play, and they're showing the highlights. Every time it's against Bryce Callahan. Like, because he's a little guy. Like, put him in the slot, and for some reason they're hell-bent on making him an outside corner. Okay, so let him get burnt by Corey Davis, and then we'll see. And now I'm ranting on the defense again. But, okay, so defense is poor. Offense got to put the foot on the gas. Sounds like something Drew Lock can do, and certainly can do it with Cortland Sutton. Tip of the iceberg with Sutton. Certainly something he can do with Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, save them. That's how. And Noah Fant had a very strong camp, but not enough people talked about him, even locally. People just kind of were glossing over Noah Fant. So can Fant, Sutton, and Jeudy do enough? Phillip Lindsay's going to fight, okay? And it's going to be a 50-50 split. I don't know why. I'll tell you off air who it was, but
Yeah.
There's some people proclaiming like, well, my sources tell me that they don't believe that there's going to be a split. It's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay. Well, my sources, like I talked to a beat writer and he said that he doesn't believe in the split. Yeah. Your sources are crap. It's going to be a split. Lindsey's going to have a lot of heart, catch some passes out of the backfield. They'll use Gordon when they get close to the goal line. You know, it's going to be 50-50. Phillip Lindsay changed their plans at running back again. So how much do you believe in Sutton and Jeudy, knowing that the defense is likely to struggle and the offense is going to have some firepower, more firepower? And this, again, feeds into the fantasy lens. But man alive, Denver's offense, you better be better than we think in order to keep yourself in games.
And just in time for Jadeveon Clowney also. So you've got Harold Landry and Jadeveon Clowney. So, this is one of those things. It's not ideal, Cease. It's not ideal to put the game on Drew Lock's shoulders. It's not ideal to have him back there trying to make things happen, throwing downfield, probably on a lot of third and longs. But at the same time, because once they fall behind, you're not just going to go, run on first down, run on second down. But at the same time, this is a chance for Drew Lock to show that he's growing up. I think you like Jeudy over Sutton this week just because Drew Lock with Clowney and Landry and maybe Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley. See, you never want to hear like your $8-9 million acquisition in free agency. Well, if he's in good enough condition, he'll play week 1. Ugh. That's why you go get Jadeveon Clowney, who's reunited with Mike Vrabel. I think if you're Drew Lock, you want to get the ball out quickly. And that's Jerry Jeudy getting open. That's not contested catches down the sidelines to Cortland Sutton, although it's still going to be a Cortland Sutton game just because of targets. And then you mentioned Noah Fant, and you want to have Noah Fant ripping the seam there. You want to discourage them from, they've got some really good athletic inside linebackers, guys like Rashawn Evans and Jayon Brown. The last thing you want to see, and see, you can talk about this, Denver offensive line.
Interior is fine. Interior is fine. The tackles are awful. Eli Wilkinson's not healthy.
Right.
And DeMar Dotson's old and not necessarily good anymore. And Garrett Bowles is Garrett Holmes.
Right. So what are you doing? So, Cease, if you're game planning this, I'm sorry, maybe Noah Fant's not always running a route. Or maybe your blitz on the offensive line or your protection scheme is to help out those tackles. So what do you do to counter that? A-gap blitzes, man. Send those linebackers, crash those linebackers. I'm just saying that it could be a long night for Drew Lock. This could be one for old Drew Lock and Daniel Jones. Like, maybe good times are coming, but not necessarily in week 1. The other big question is, if they do fall behind, if they do have to run more no huddle, hurry up, who's the running back? Is it Phillip Lindsay with more familiarity? Is it Melvin Gordon, who at least theoretically has a more well-rounded skill set? So some questions there. You're probably going to avoid the Broncos backs either way because we don't think they're going to get into their comfort zone on offense. And not necessarily you're a Broncos fan, right? You start out the week watching the Chiefs' coronation. You end the week just hoping that Drew Lock isn't put on his butt a lot.
Yeah, the Von Miller injury. Speaking of putting you on your ass, that was bad. It was very, very bad. And Phillip Lindsay, as we transition to our ever popular "What the Heck" flex, and every single week at the end of the preview shows, we go down, we look at some deeper players because you're just looking over your lineup. You need some of that punch. So week one, what the heck flexes, Bloom? I will get to some of mine, which does include Philip Lindsay. I think he's there at that level, what the heck flex type of level. J.K. Dobbins, I'm excited to see as a what the heck flex. Matt Breida as a what the heck flex for me as well. And then when we get to the wide receivers for me, I think Emmanuel Sanders is more than a what the heck flex, but you might be able to get him in there as that. Don't forget Louder with Crowder, Jamison Crowder, always a what the heck flex for me. Tonight, in addition to the Thursday night show, but McCole Hardman, probably going to be a what the heck flex for me every week until Sammy Watkins is hurt. And then you're starting Hardman every single week, just regular wise. So what the heck flexes? You look over that lineup, Bloom, you need that punch. Who are some of your week one what the heck flexes?
And what the heck flex for week one is a little different than every other week because basically it's who did you not draft as a starter that you might think about starting this week? Maybe the easiest one at running back is Raheem Mostert. If you drafted him as your third running back, he should be in your lineup. Zach Moss should be in your lineup. Antonio Gibson, especially in PPR league, should be in your lineup. Marlon Mack's one to think about. We've been hearing more that, hey, it's still Mack's backfield and Taylor will spell him. If that ends up being true this year, week one would be when it's most likely to be true. Jordan Howard, we talked about how the Patriots' run defense could just be horrific this year. Miami likes their offensive line. James Robinson, Philip Lindsay, I'll go ahead and second that. We might see David Montgomery play against Detroit, but if I'm going to play a Bears running back, especially in PPR, it's going to be Tariq Cohen. James White and Rex Burkhead are interesting with all the terrible issues in the passing game for New England. Isn't it crazy? Week one, talking about all the problems that New England has. Attack New England. Philadelphia, and I see some people like our man KGB in the chat room saying Boston Scott. Don't forget about Corey Clement. If this is a lesser Miles Sanders game, they really like Corey Clement. Jerick McKinnon, CCU already gave the wink on Jerick McKinnon there. Duke Johnson. So if we expect Houston to be playing behind the touchdown, 2 touchdowns, that could also be a Duke Johnson game there. You mentioned J.K. Dobbins at wide receiver. McCole Hardman, number one on my list. He's thinking the same. Jerry Jeudy, again, you might not have drafted him to be a starter. He should be in your lineup. C.D. Lamb, Michael Gallup, Jamison Crowder. Let's see about Brandon Cooks. We're talking a lot about Will Fuller. If Brandon Cooks is out, Kenny Stills becomes interesting for sure. Laviska Shenault, we mentioned. Going even deeper, if you want, someone like Olabisi Johnson, if Minnesota has to pass more. Steven Sims against Philadelphia, especially if McLaurin and Slay are locked up. And Brian Edwards, and I'm just thinking Dante Jackson, speed, the one quality viable corner for the Panthers, probably going to be with Henry Ruggs. You would think that would make a lot more sense. So Brian Edwards could have a great rookie debut for the Raiders.
By the way, Bloom, this is what all the stadiums are going to look like. Actually, much less people than just that even. So
right.
Here we go.
Echo.
Lots of echoes. All right. We have football tonight.
Ooh.
We have the Audible live tonight, starting roughly around halftime. What is it, 8 p.m. Mountain, Bloom?
Yeah, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern.
So,
right.
yeah. So
we also have the return of Cecil Lammey.
Yes, tonight on the live show. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Dr. Gene Bramall, Matt Waldman, Sigmund Bloom, Cecil Lammey here on the Audible. We certainly love and appreciate you guys. Do all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, and help us grow this channel. Thank you all very much for listening, where you download your podcast, whether that's Spotify or iTunes, a very large footprint there. So thank you for that. Our YouTube channel is growing. Thank you for that. And of course, follow us on Twitter at Cecil Lammey, at Sigmund Bloom, and at The Audible. We are The Audible. Well, you are The Audible. How about that? Everyone out there, for the great Sigmund Bloom, I'm Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.